If you want to see me perform live, join me every Wednesday at 10 p.m. for Ty Rivera and Friends at the Creek in the Cave here in Austin, Texas. Yeah, I think that's one of the things people don't really understand about me and this process right now is I'm still going by the unbothered or the Slumber Party name for this podcast, but it really is more like my original podcast, which was called Unbothered. And the people that were familiar with that podcast, it didn't have a huge audience, like, never as many as even any of the episodes I've done of Slumber Party. Even the lowest one, which right now there's one that's only got 1,000, but it's out on a Wednesday, and I didn't put out an inflammatory promo for it. I just put out a basic because I wanted this one to be a fun one, even though I do some gossip, but it was a fun one. It was one when Hooch and Nick were still here, and they're both dead now. Moment of silence. Okay, that's long enough. But since they're passing, I haven't known what to do with myself, and this has all really just been a breakdown and a fever dream, and I apologize for everything I said. Just joking. I meant all of it. And I think that the people that I talked about needed to hear it. But I used to always tell people, because people would be like, for it to be called Unbothered, you sure do seem bothered. And the thing was, if you knew the premise of the podcast, I called it Unbothered because it was me talking about things that bothered me until the point where I got to where I reached Unbothered. And so that's why I would talk about everything so much. And I would have fun talking about it. And then, like, in this most recent iteration, which would be Slumber Party, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Slumber Party. If you didn't realize what's going on, I'm in the middle of starting Slumber Party. So if you can just let me do that, I would really appreciate it. This is part of my process. Some people, and have to meditate or whatever. I just start bitching and see where it goes from there. And that's what people don't get about me, because they'll be like, you talk so much about so-and-so. And I'm like, I don't know who I'm going to talk about at any particular moment. I know I come in with a few things on my mind, and then from there, I just let myself go. And wherever the story takes me is where it takes me. And I've thought about taking names out before, either through beeping or through, which, like, the beeping, I've tried it just as a test run for a couple of stories. And because I'll say names so many times during a story, it's just so many beeps that you really can't get the story. And I feel like people would really complain about that and be like, why is it we're just hearing beeps over and over and over? And so some of you guys even complain when I do beeps for the cursing, and that's because YouTube will only let me get away with so much. And I really do try to push it more and more each time. But also the editing on these can be ridiculous when it comes to taking out the curse words, because sometimes especially some of the episodes I did with Nick, both of us are using the F word so much that it's just a bunch of beeps or a bunch of me taking the sound out. So I found out kind of where YouTube is on it, and I'm feeling better about it now, and I'm able to leave a few more in, but it's something that I have to be aware of. But when it comes to the names, it's like, I posted on Instagram last week that I was either going to do a 43-minute version or a 53-minute version. And the version that I was going to do that was 43 minutes was taking out the story about Janice and Red Band. And that's because I do love Red Band. Like, that's the other thing you guys have to know about me, is when I say I love somebody, I actually mean I love them. And yeah, I don't have sappy love for everybody. I don't have romantic love for everybody, but I do genuinely love these people. Like, when it comes to both Red Band and Janice, I genuinely do love them. But there's also the fact that I am on a particular mission with myself and just trying to make it so when people like me, they like or know the most genuine version of me, the most authentic version of me. That way we're working from there, and there can be no surprises. So, like, this will happen the way it happens, and then I can decide where it is I want to take it as far as who I want to allow back into my life. Because the thing that's funny about me is when people tell me that I'm burning bridges, and even when I say I'm burning bridges, what I don't think people realize is people talking to me about burning bridges is different than what I'm talking about when I say I'm burning bridges. See, because you guys look at it as me burning bridges to opportunities, and I look at it as burning bridges that are bridges to me. So I'm trying to make it so certain people don't have access to me. And I found out in this process who really does mean it when they say they're my friends and who doesn't. And so I have a forgiving heart. So when this is all said and done, some people are going to want to be my friends again. And some of them I will be cool with again. But some of them I will decide, no, I saw where you were back then. And I always kind of knew that that's where you were. And you just confirmed it. So now why would I have you back? Like the saying goes, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. That's like a very popular saying. And I really do live by that in a lot of ways, because I found that a lot of times a leopard doesn't change its spots. It just is what it is. And I know different people are like that because they want to be popular, or they just want people to have this perception of them. And even like Tony, like people think that I hate Tony Hinchcliffe. And I don't hate Tony Hinchcliffe. I don't hate Sara Weinshenk. I don't hate Kim Congdon. I don't hate any of those people. Really, with Tony, I still do love him. I still do consider him a friend. I don't know if he considers me a friend, and he's welcome to feel however he wants to feel. But the thing is, at a certain point, I felt like Tony had started to get confused on where it was his position was in my life. And so I came on the podcast and decided to be clear about that, because what I didn't tell you guys on the last episode was originally when all this happened, I had my thing with Adam Eget, which I still haven't gone fully into. And I don't know if I want to at this point, just because for me, at certain points, it is just like rehashing stuff or talking about things that don't matter to me anymore. And there's a version of the original video that I put out that's actually an hour and 19 minutes, I think what it is in total, because I just went home and just talked to the camera for as long as I wanted to. And I talked about some of that there. And even though you guys didn't get to hear that, for me, there was a release. And then I also have to keep in mind that sometimes, because I did it that way, you guys will not know what I'm talking about. But in my head, I'm like, I already talked about this. So when the thing happened with Adam Eget, there were a couple of people that I hit up to tell about it at first. And that was Brian Simpson, Tim Dillon. And then the last person I hit up was Tony Hinchcliffe, because I know Tony Hinchcliffe has the closest relationship with Adam. And I thought that maybe he could moderate the situation or mend the fence. Basically, was what I thought would be able to happen there. And that was not the energy that Tony was on. And I also let him know so that he would know, because, you know, people think that I'm blindsiding people, but I really do everything I can to avoid blindsiding people in the way that I do things. I usually try to go to everybody person to person first. Like first I tried to talk to Adam Eget. Then I went and talked to Adam Eget and Jody, who's the general manager. I also reached out to Carrie Mitchell, who's the bar manager. I tried to go as many ways as I could to possibly get the message to Joe, because I didn't feel like the way, and I still don't feel like the way that they're running the club is the way that Joe wants it to be run. I don't have the closest relationship with Joe. I barely know him. That's why I don't have his phone number, and I didn't know how to get a hold of him myself. But I did make attempts through friends to get a hold of him. And so when I come to Tony on friend energy and I'm like, let's me and you talk about this. And one of the first messages he sends me says, do you plan to go public about this? In my head, I felt like, am I gonna have to go public about this? And so I really did try to deal with it, just me and Tony at first. But then later on that night was Bobby Flacco's party. And then one of the guys that was at the party saw me afterwards, and I had forgotten that I was supposed to go to that party. Well, really, I had decided to forget that I was supposed to go to that party because I love Bobby Flacco, but I hadn't had time to do my hair that night. And I knew that they were going to be taking a bunch of pictures, and I was going to want to be in pictures with Bobby because I really do love Bobby Flacco. And so I didn't want a bunch of pictures with me with a messy head. And so I came to Creek, and then I forgot about the party, legitimately did forget about it at a point. And then I saw one of the guys coming back from the party, and he was like, yeah, I was at Bobby's party. And I was like, oh yeah, I was supposed to go to that. And I was like, how was it? And he was like, it was great. He was like, Rachel Wolfson was there. And this is one of the guys that really hangs out, you know, so he knows everybody. He talks to everybody that I would have been talking to. I would have been talking to him had we been at the party. So he's like one of those guys. So he says to me, yeah, Rachel Wolfson was there, Matt Edgar was there, Tony Hinchcliffe was there. And I was like, oh, cool. And then he says to me, so when you were at Mothership, and this is as out of nowhere as I'm making it sound right now. Like first he's just telling me who was there and how great the party was. And then he jumps right into, so when you were at Mothership, were you an actual regular, or were you just sort of? And I was like, one, why is this stranger saying when you were at Mothership? And two, why is he asking me if I was a regular or just sort of? Who would have talked to him about that? Because I know Matt Edgar didn't know anything was going on at that point unless Tony told him, which they're best friends. But I don't think Matt Edgar would make that his choice of conversation. I know Matt Edgar well enough, and I do trust Matt Edgar to be my friend enough that if he had heard that from anybody else, I don't think Matt Edgar would be talking about that. Because at that point, I personally hadn't talked to Matt Edgar about that because I really was trying to keep all of this as discreet as possible. This was before I even had the meeting with Adam and Jody. So at that point, for me, it was like, at that point, you don't burn the bridge. Either way, the bridge to you or the bridge away from you, either way, you don't burn the bridge. You're still waiting to see what's going to happen. Handle it like a gentleman and let things play out the way that they play out. But then this guy is talking to me like this. And I know that that had to have come from Tony at that point. So I'm like, okay, well, to me, that's not the way a friend would handle this situation. So that happens. And I went ahead and let that one go. I didn't mention Tony in the video other than the fact that, you know, those were his friends. And that's just because I was telling the story the way I was telling it. And I feel like if you see something as a problem and you want a problem fixed, it does you no good to dance around who the actual characters are within the problem or within the situation, the equation, however you want to put it. It doesn't do you any good. You've got to actually say certain things. And when it came to Kim Congdon specifically, I've mentioned before that I think she has the potential to be very funny. And I don't know why anybody doesn't hear that, including Kim. It's not like I just completely trash her. I'm like, I don't think she could ever be funny. I don't think she's shit. I mean, like, if I really don't like somebody, that's the way I'll talk about them. Like, if I'm really trying to trash somebody, the way that people come at me sometimes on YouTube and they're like, you're just talking shit about everybody. It's like, no, you guys really haven't heard me talk shit about anybody yet. You've heard me be very honest about certain people and about the way I feel about certain people or the way that certain people handled situations. But I haven't really talked shit about anybody. Everything I've said has been very technical when it comes to stand-up, because like I told you guys on the last episode, that's really all I care about is stand-up. Like when it comes down to my interactions within the stand-up world, it's always stuff about stand-up. Like when people ask me why I think Adam wasn't the best booker or isn't the best booker, and on a technical level, what I don't think Adam does is I don't think he actually fosters up-and-coming talent. I think he hears from other people who they think are funny, and then he'll trust their judgment, and then he'll try to foster those people. But it's more off of the word of others than it is off of his actual knowledge or him actually coming at it from a real place. I came up under Jamie Masada, who was the owner, is still the owner of the Laugh Factory in Hollywood. And Jamie Masada himself will tell you that when he did stand-up, he was a horrible stand-up comic. I don't know if it was the 70s or the 80s. I think it was probably the 70s because he came up with Richard Pryor and Paul Mooney and all those guys. He came up in that generation, the generation when Mitzi was really partying. When Mitzi Shore was Mitzi Shore, which I met her maybe twice in my life, and both times were just brief. She was very warm with me the second time I met her, but that's one person I really do respect, just from what she built and from what continues to grow from what she built. But when it comes to Jamie Masada, he was from those days. So he decided to start up his own club. And even though he admits that he was a terrible stand-up comic, the way that Jamie used to do it when I started going to the Comedy Store, which would have been 2003. 2003 would have been when I first went to the Comedy Store, the first time he saw me. And from the beginning, Jamie took a very hands-on approach with me as far as telling me what he wanted to see from me. He basically told me to move it to LA. At that time, I wasn't living in LA. I just wanted to check it out because I wanted to get a lay of the land and see if I was going to live there, like where I'd want to live, or because you hear things, but you don't know until you actually go. And even then, after me going, because I think I stayed for a week or something like that. But even after that, I still didn't have any idea what I was doing. I still didn't get enough of the lay of the land because LA is such a crazy place. And so, and I was coming from Arizona. But Jamie told me at that time when he saw me, because what I was trying to get at is the way that Jamie used to do it was there were, I believe it was 10 spots on the open mic. You all had to do 3 minutes of TV clean material. If it wasn't TV clean, if you said the F word, the S word, any word that you couldn't say on TV, there was a guy, Harvey, that sat next to the stage, really old guy, old school Hollywood type guy. And he had this silly little voice like that. And he would go like, okay, that was Ty Rivera, everybody. Let's bring out your next comedian. If you cursed. But I never cursed because, like, another thing people don't understand about me, and I've said this before, is I was raised to respect people. So I was raised having a lot of respect for people. And so when somebody told me that I wasn't supposed to curse, especially at that time when I knew that I knew nothing about stand-up, now I do what I want in a lot of cases. But then when I was coming up, I knew to mind my P's and Q's and be on my best behavior, and I didn't want to ruin any opportunities for myself. And so I was very, very careful about the way I did everything. And if they said 3 minutes clean, you had to get there at 2 p.m. because people would literally start lining up to sign up on the list at 6 p.m. So you're there for 4 hours in the sun. There was really no awning or any place to hide from the sun. You're just standing out in the sun. But what would make it worth it, I found out, was that Jamie would sit in the back of the room and he'd sit at a booth. You'd be on the stage and he would watch every single one of us. And then afterwards you'd go, there's an upstairs area at the Laugh Factory. You'd go upstairs and you'd all get in a line and he would critique everybody. Some people would be like, have progressed enough in their stand-up, that they showed up, and Jamie would automatically make them regulars. And some people, Jamie would give them advice. Some people, Jamie would just kind of be like, look, you got so much work to do. Just you work on it and then come back to me in 4 weeks. Because it was standard for him to say, come back in 4 weeks after he told you whatever he was telling you, which meant give it a minimum of 4 weeks before you came back. So when I first did it, I really had my stuff down. I was one of those nerds that used to practice with a pen in my hand or the remote control. And I had a bird at the time and I'd sit my bird on his stand and he was my audience and he wouldn't laugh. He'd just say, hello, every once in a while, because that was the only word he said. His name was Dexter. And so, so I had really, because, since I had the 4 hours out there, I was like, I better make sure I have this 3 minutes and it better be as clean as they want it to be. And so I really, really did my stuff. And I was so nervous and I had such stage fright because I was brand new. I probably had been on stage at that point, maybe 1 or 2 times. And I knew from the beginning, obviously, how bad my stage fright was. That's why I was thinking about moving to LA. But Jamie, like I said, would give us each advice. And when it came to me, he was like, you are a really good writer. He was like, but you're very green. And he was like, I can tell how green you are. And so he asked me how many times I'd been on stage. I was honest with him. And he was like, where do you live? And I was like, I live in Arizona. And he was like, are you moving to LA? I said, yeah, I plan on moving to LA. He said, when are you moving to LA? I said, I'm thinking like 4 months or so. He was like, move to LA as soon as you possibly can. Stage time. I'll see you in 4 weeks. And so I knew that at the 4-week mark, because I didn't end up moving out, I think until a couple months later. Or no, it actually ended up being a month later. So where I told him 4 months, it ended up being like 4 weeks because or maybe 5 weeks, because it ended up being around February when I did that. And I went to go see them at the end of December because I remember I celebrated New Year's Eve in LA. Then I had to go back to Arizona. And then by February 13th, I think was the date that I moved to LA or started being in LA. And so I knew I wasn't anywhere close to ready. So I didn't bother Jamie. And then it took a couple years or a year and a half or so before I went back to see him. And I had progressed a lot. And then he recognized me because Jo Koy technically had seen me at which somebody asked me to talk about Jo Koy and Joke Thief and that kind of stuff. And I worked with Jo Koy like 10 years ago. I never knew him to be a joke thief. I know there's been certain things on the internet, but I also know that a lot of that stuff that I've seen has been very stereotypical Filipino stuff. And for me, like, hack shit is different than stealing. And so when people ask me about Jo Koy and stealing, I haven't seen him actually steal anything, even from what I've seen on TV. And live, I never saw him steal anything. And I was with him for a year and a half that I was performing with him. So there's that. But just because somebody asked about it, and I figured I should somewhat address it. But I don't know Joe to be a joke thief. As far as his personality off stage, we were together for a year and a half. So like, you see the best and worst of people in a year and a half. So I don't think it's really fair. Like, that's where I'll say I don't think it's fair for me to really talk shit about him. Also, the other thing people have to know about my situation with Jo Koy is I was with him when he was just popping. Like, he was just getting the real money. And so you get to see the bratty side of people sometimes when that's happening. It's just part of the process that I think everybody goes through when they get hit with that amount of success. And it comes at them that fast from everything. But anyway, Jo Koy, back before I was working with him, was the one who had recommended me. And so that time I didn't have to do the open mic. I went straight to just showcase. But then Jamie remembered me, of course. And then he kept me in the showcase process for 2 years. And he was giving me different notes every time. And I there were times where I got mad at him. There were times where I even lightweight snapped at him. But by that time, we had been working together so much, or, he had been coaching me so much on what he wanted to see, that when I snapped at him, he didn't take it all. That's one thing I really respect about Jamie, is because I've snapped at him a few times. And because he's been dealing with comics for so long, he just treats you like a kid throwing a tantrum. He'll just be like, because Jamie has that accent, so he'll be like, buddy, buddy, why are you so mad, buddy? I see you in 4 weeks. And it's like, damn it. All right, Jamie, I'll see you in 4 weeks. But I would lose it because, so, like, one time he made me so mad because he told me to come back and do 15 minutes. And I know, because you do 20 minutes for your paid sets at the Laugh Factory. And so he told me that he wanted to see me do 15 minutes. So I said, okay. And I got my 15 minutes ready. And then they didn't give me the light. And since I was used to people cutting you off if you ran your time, and I was still showcasing, I wasn't a regular. I'm not trying to behave like a regular. I am showcasing. I know my place. And so I knew I had done my full 15 minutes, but I hadn't seen the light. So I looked around for the host. And then when I saw the host in the corner, I was just like, all right, thank you, everybody. That's Ty Rivera. So I go upstairs, right? Proud of myself because I did my 15 minutes. I didn't run over. I was a professional. I get upstairs. Jamie's like, buddy, I noticed at the end of 15 minutes, you look around like you don't know what's going on, buddy. Did you get lost? And I was like, no, my 15 minutes was up. You said do 15 minutes. And he was like, well, now I don't know if you can do 20, buddy. I was like, Jamie, come on. I've been doing 20 minutes. Can you just make me a regular now? He was like, buddy, I don't know if you can do 20 minutes. I'm going to have to bring you back. And that time I really lost it. I was like, just make me a regular. He was like, buddy, I'll see you in 4 weeks. I was like, God damn it. All right, I'll see you in 4 weeks. And so, then I became a regular, and I don't remember if it was 4 weeks later or 2 months later, because at the time I was going on the road all the time. And so I wasn't able to make all of my appointments with Jamie, but the Laugh Factory was really behind me. All the people in the audience, or in the office, had started to love me because they had been going, seeing me go back over and over for those 2 years. And also, to be honest, I'm pretty lovable, which I know is why a lot of people are mad at me on the scene right now. I know a lot of people are not mad at me because of the things I said. I know a lot of people are mad at me because the things that I said have made them not be able to hang out with me. And it's kind of funny to me, and it's kind of sweet at the same time, and it's also kind of annoying at the same time. Because it's like, you guys just admit that you fucking love me, and right now you just can't talk to me because of political reasons. I really don't mind, but I will tell you guys the truth on all this. I like the peace and quiet. I really do like that I don't have a bunch of people bugging me right now. Because another thing that people don't understand about the way this has all gone down was that there were points where I knew people were using me for my access to Mothership. When somebody asks you if you want to go to Mitzi's on a particular night, which for anybody that's not familiar, it's the bar in the Mothership. And you tell them you're not sure if you want to go to Mitzi's. And then they're like, come on, let's just go to Mitzi's. And you're like, I don't feel like going to Mitzi's tonight. And then I tell them finally, all right, let's do it this way. You go to Mitzi's, because everybody that knows me will tell you from the beginning, since I first got here to this city, I've always been a Creek guy. Yes, I work for the Mothership. Yes, I love Sunset, but I have always been a Creek guy. You can always find me on this patio, more than you should, more than I should be here. I'm on this patio. But I would tell them, all right, well, you go to Mitzi's. I'm going to go to Creek for a little bit. And then if I end up feeling like it, I'll go meet you at Mitzi's. Because, you know, it's a quick walk. It's nothing to get there for anybody that's not familiar with Austin. And so everything's a quick walk. Like as far as Sunset, there's all the clubs I just mentioned, they're all a quick walk from each other. So I would tell them this, and this literally happened more than once. And then what would they tell me next? Well, actually, I'm not, I don't have, because they would say I'm not allowed in Mitzi's, which what they meant when they said that was they don't have access to get into Mitzi's. So why are you inviting me to a place that I'm technically your ticket into? Does that not feel kind of like somebody's using you at that point? Because it's like, why are you pressuring me to go to this place that you're not even technically allowed in? You don't have access to it. I'm your ticket into Mitzi's. So stuff like that did start to get on my nerves. And also, to wrap up what I was saying about like these people is when it comes to like the people that I mentioned, the Kim, the Sara, the Tony, all that situation, because like I talk about the people that have like, you know, talked about me like being a clout chaser, or that I'm mentioning these people. I don't see these people as clout. And I don't mean that at all in an insulting way in the least. I mean, you guys see them as celebrities and heroes. Some of you do. I can tell by the comments you leave me. But I just see them as people I know. I don't see them at all in that way. They're just people I know. And like, you know, even like I've told people this before, like Kim Congdon reminds me a lot of my sister. My sister is a much better joke writer though. And she's been dead for 20 years. Just playing, you guys, I'm just playing. Can I not have fun ever anymore? Does everything I say have to be an insult? But my sister is dead and has been for 20 years and is a better joke writer. I'm just playing. But Kim does remind me, because my sister had that same fucking spunky talk shit spirit, and every once in a while I would hate that bitch too. I didn't talk to her for the last year of her life almost, and then right at the end we made up. And then she ended up dying shortly after that, which really pissed me off because I felt like, you know, if that bitch had just stayed mad at me and I had stayed mad at her, I wouldn't have cared that she died. I mean, I would have kind of, but I still would have been kind of petty and been like, good, I'm glad she's dead. But we made up right before, and it was the worst ever because she was my best friend for most of my life. But Kim really does remind me of her in a lot of ways. And I've said this way before any of this happened. Technically, I said it the first time she pissed me off. But I do not dislike Kim. And also I think Kim would honestly be an unstoppable force because she is a very pretty girl and she has it in her to be a good comic because she's already a good writer. I mean, like, I never said the shit she was reading off her phone wasn't bad or was bad. I just said that she hadn't worked it out and she wasn't to that level yet, because you do have to be somewhere to be that level where you can just read it off your phone and make it funny in the moment. Not everybody's going to be great at that, especially for every audience. So I just think that if Kim would put more work into what she was doing, that would be her ticket to being an unstoppable force. Because if you look like that, and then what comes out of your mouth is just as great as the way you look, that's going to be unstoppable. I've always said that, and I still have yet to find a bitch that's doing it. And believe me, I know a lot of pretty girls in stand-up. I know a lot of funny girls in stand-up. One that I think is close to being there and will figure it out, and especially because of the way that they pushed her out, is Leonarda. And I don't just say that because, you know, she's had her problems with Mothership too, or she's had my back in a lot of this or any of that. Like I said, I look at it technically even when it's people that I like. But I think that a lot of times when you ostracize people, you kind of force them to mutate and get better because they don't have a choice. And so I think if Leonarda is smart and continues to do everything the way that she's doing it, she's right now on the road with another comedian. And so I think if she continues to do things the way that she's doing them, she'll be an unstoppable force like that, because she is just a very beautiful girl. To look at her, she's very pretty. And whether we like that or not, that is a lot of times what people respond to as beauty. So then there's that. And then if what's coming out of their mouth is just as good. So, you know, when I say things like that about Kim, if you think about it, that's a fixable problem. And every day is another day to turn me into a liar. And there was a part of me that thought maybe Kim would do that. I didn't care that she got on the phone and started trying to get me canceled off stuff. But at the same time, I thought it was a weak way to handle it, because the other thing I think she could have done was, we're both part of the Roast Battle family. And we both have a really good relationship with Brian Moses. Brian Moses is one of my favorite people in the world. For anybody that's not familiar, he's like one of the co-founders of the Roast Battle, and he's still the host of Roast Battle to this day. He's the main guy at Roast Battle, and we're both super close with Moses. So if she had gone to Moses and said, hey, I want to challenge Ty to a roast battle, you think I wouldn't have taken that? It would have been fun for us. We both would have made some money. We could have possibly got it done at Skankfest. Like, you know, I expect people to think of things more in a business way, is what I'm saying when I do shit like this. Like, yeah, you can have your feelings or whatever, but at the same time, are we not in show business? Is this not supposed to be somewhat fun? And yeah, maybe I did talk a little bit of shit, but did I say anything? I didn't say anything about her looks in a negative way. I didn't say anything about, you know, her family, her character. None of the things that could be considered unforgivable did I actually say. Even when I talked about Tony, because I've had a few people hit me up. This is one thing I was trying to get to, is I've had a few people hit me up in DMs and be like, I know this and this and this about Tony Hinchcliffe, and there's this particular situation that he did this and this and this. And I'm like, okay, is any of this actually verifiable? Is there evidence to anything you're saying? Because I don't know about anybody else, but my intention with any of this is not to ruin anybody's life, including Tony Hinchcliffe. That's not the way I'm coming at this. And especially not my own, because if you have me say some shit that's not provable, you think Tony won't sue my ass? Yes, everybody knows Tony's cheap as fuck, but he'll find money for a lawyer. I guarantee you that. He will definitely find money to sue me. He probably has a handful of lawyers that love watching Kill Tony. They'll sue me for free. They'll do it pro bono. I can't take that smoke, you guys. I told so many people to fuck off. I can't afford a lawsuit. Let's be honest. I don't have extra money in the coffers for a lawsuit against Tony. And if you think Joe Rogan won't throw his money behind that too, you don't know how this business works. You're not paying attention. I'm gonna need you guys to look alive if we're gonna do this. What I'm saying is I'm down to ruin his life. You guys just gotta send me the right shit. I'm just playing. I really am, but it's fun though. You know, it's fun to just be stupid. But it really is the way that people hit me up. It's like, you're not getting me, and you're not getting what I'm saying. When it comes to Tony, even when I talked about the Nick Roche thing, nobody knew that Nick Roche was in that state. And I talked about it on my Instagram that something seemed a little off, but since I didn't know him that well, I didn't feel like it was my place to really ask him. Because if you know me, which I've talked about this on this podcast before, I hate when people ask me if everything's all right. Because I feel like, one, I don't know you like that. And two, like, who cares? Like, I get through my shit on my own. Maybe there is something wrong today, but just leave me alone and I'll work through it. I have other people that I would go to for that if I wanted to talk about that. And so maybe I projected a little bit of that onto Nick that I shouldn't have. And so I don't think Tony did it knowing that he was pushing him at all. But what I would say on that is that I think people like Tony and people like myself need to remember that some of these young comics are a lot more vulnerable than we are. And some of them don't have the thick skin that we do. So if we bully them or even come off like we're bullying them, you have to do a little bit of aftercare. You have to say, hey, I was just joking with you. Because I do it regularly on my show where there'll be a newer comic and they won't do so well. And I'll shit on them. I will completely shit on them. I'll make a good time of it. The audience loves it. We all love it. 10 p.m. every Wednesday here at the Creek in the Cave. Come check out my show. It really is worth seeing. And it's getting more fun every week. And I'm starting to do that too, where I'll rapid fire a couple of comics. Tonight we were able to get 3 in our rapid fire. And, I have the audience boo them if they're great. But my point with all this is 10 o'clock every Wednesday at the Creek. That's my point with all this right now. But what I'm trying to say is every time, and you can ask any one of the comics I've done it to, I will go talk to them in the green room, or if they're outside, I'll go find them outside and I'll talk to them and I'll tell them what I think they really need to be doing with their set or how I think they could make it better for next time. And I tell them it's not the end of the world. And, because some of them do get kind of down about it or whatever, not just because of my words, but because as a newer comic, you want to do well. And sometimes you do feel like you ruined an opportunity. And I let them know, look, these things don't really matter. Really what matters is you getting better. So take the things I said on stage as what they are. They're fun. That's me entertaining. But as far as what I'm telling you now, these are the things you can do to get yourself better. And sometimes the advice that I give them is as simple as the same thing Jamie told me, which is stage time, stage time, stage time. Just get out to as many open mics as you can possibly get to and get better. But with Tony, and I know we can't do that with everybody on Kill Tony, and that's where I would say for any newer comics that might be watching this, because I know a fair amount of you do, for the tea, and I don't blame you. I don't care why you watch. But see, this is where you can get a little bit of actual value from this, is listen to me when I tell you that even if you bomb on Kill Tony, nobody's going to remember you from everybody else that bombed on Kill Tony. So you don't have to think of it as the end of the world that way. And also take everything Tony's saying and the other comics or the rest of the panel say on Kill Tony and just look at that as what it is, which is entertainment. They've got to make the show fun. And that's one of the reasons I say that I really do respect Tony, is because when it comes to that show, what a lot of the comics forget is you can do however you do. You can bomb, you can do great. But no matter what happens up there, Tony has to be good. Tony and Red Band have to be worth the money that they're getting for the ads. Tony and Red Band have to be worth the viewership. That's who has to be worth it. So, that's sometimes what people forget. So in that way, I forgive anything Tony does or says on stage as far as that goes. But when it comes to your person-to-person interactions, which a lot of people on this scene, and I'm not trying to call anything out, anybody on this scene knows that, is a fair amount of people have had negative interactions with Tony on a one-to-one. And it's that's where you can watch your behavior. That's where you can at least be a little bit cooler with people, or at least make sure people know afterwards, hey, I was joking. Because your words do actually matter. People actually do listen to me. Believe it or not, I know. I don't think they should either. For anybody that's going to type in right now, nobody cares about you. I feel the same way you do. Nobody should care about me. I don't even know why people care about me as much as they do, but they do. So here we are. I mean, you can talk all the shit you want in the comments, but you're watching, or you wouldn't even know that I said this. And we're pretty well into it, so it's not like you just hate watch the first little part. Yeah, 40 minutes. 40 minutes in, and here you are, still bitching. Don't hold me responsible for what you watch. Do not act like this is me forcing you to watch this right now. You've watched it for long enough. You see I'm still the same hateful asshole I've been on every other episode. So you can't even be like, I thought he was taking a turn. No, it stayed consistent. So is this me being an asshole or is this you being an asshole? leave something in your own comments. Fuck my comments. Leave it in your comments. Oh, that's right. You don't have a channel. Anyway. But it's true. You know, for some reason, people will listen to us. Maybe it's because we've both been in it so long, but people will listen to us. And with the younger comics, I do feel like we have to be somewhat chill with them and somewhat forgiving. And also, like, I talked about this on one of the episodes. There's people that are living in their cars here. There's people that are going through situations that we really don't have a grasp of at this point. Like when I moved to LA, I was living in my car for a little while. I ran out of money quick in that city. And I would say there were points where I was kind of vulnerable, but I didn't ever feel suicidal because, believe it or not, I'm a little bit on the, well, I was raised Catholic. And so I was raised that if you kill yourself, that's a sin and you're going to hell automatically. But I know some of you are thinking, but you're gay, so you're going to hell anyway. I said I was raised Catholic. If you know the rules to being Catholic, as long as you repent right at the end. Elevator up! It's true, though. And so at the end of all this, I'm going to be like, God, I meant none of this. I'm not even gay. I hate it. You saw me gagging while it was happening. You saw... All right, let me get it together. I was going somewhere with all of this. There was a point to all of this somewhere. Oh, anyway, even Sara Weinshenk. Well, because I'm wrapping it up. Because, you know, I don't plan to continue to talking about this. I plan to continue to talk about, or to continue the podcast, but to talk about different subjects and have guests and stuff like that. And I don't care if I lose a certain amount of viewers over it, have to build back up, because I know I'm an interesting enough person, and I know that enough people have gotten an idea of what it is I am now, and the good ones will stick around. Again, this will be like the friend situation that I'm talking about now, except for it'll be an online version of it. Those of you who are just here for the negative stuff, or for the tea, as they would say, it'll still always be there to a certain degree where I'll talk about things like that, because that's just a part of what I talk about when I'm on a podcast or doing my own podcast. But like me talking about Mothership and this kind of thing will definitely slow down a lot, just because it's been a couple weeks now. And really my point with all of it, what I was saying earlier, was I was trying to get a message to Joe, because I didn't think things were being run the way that I thought they were supposed to be run. If you guys want to know my real feelings, I still don't really think anything of Adam Eget. We were never friends. We never will be friends. I mean, one day we might be baseline cool, but I just don't like the way he does anything, and I don't like the way he's treated me. And I've known him for over 10 years now, and he's always been the same shitty person with me always trying to respect him or show him respect, even though, like, and so that's why when I finally lost it and I said what I said online and in person about, you know, me not thinking he should have his job and that kind of stuff, I meant every word of that. And that's still the way I feel about things. And that was because I really have tried my best to be respectful with him and just always had him shit on me. And I don't respect you when you behave like that with me, because I know where I'm coming from when I'm dealing with you. I know that I'm trying my best to be as respectful as possible. And so when you finally push me to the point where I say you're not shit, it's because I really do feel you're not shit. So, like, I'm not going to apologize for everything on this podcast. And technically, I'm not apologizing for anything I said. I'm just saying in certain ways, I think there's other ways people can look at it that is more the way that I look at it. I'm just not going to watch the way I talk And I'm just not going to try to not be entertaining when I said things. Could you imagine if I just sat here like it was a technical, like inside the actor's studio? Well, I think what Kim could be doing would be, and when it comes to Tony Hinchcliffe, I think that he could be, come on. That would be boring as fuck. You guys wouldn't have watched this many times. But yeah, it would be gay. Come on, this is gay. Click. But you know, it wouldn't be fun and entertaining. And I can't help but be fun and entertaining. This is just part of my personality. If you were ever to talk to me person to person, you'd see that this is the way I am all the time. I don't really have to. I mean, I turn it up for the podcast because it's just me, but I don't have to turn it on for the podcast. This is my personality. But like, you know, when I say it's just me, I don't have a guest here, obviously. So I really like, you know, just bounce off whatever I'm thinking in my head and say it in the most fun way possible. But, you know, like I really just feel like with a lot of these people, they just take themselves a little more seriously than I'm going to take anybody. Because I'm the same way with myself, to tell you the truth. There's plenty of times that I'll have what outwardly would be great sets. And in my head, I'll be like, you didn't do those new jokes. You chickened out. You had new jokes that you wanted to do. And instead, you went to your security blanket. And, you know, if you listen to the recording or if you were to watch a video of it or if you were in the room, you would be like, that was an amazing set. You killed it. And I'd be like, no, not really. Like in my head, I didn't do any of what I had planned on doing. So to me, that's not really an honest win. That's not really me killing it. But I get it. You know, to you, it was amazing. But amazing things come from amazing people all the time. Sometimes you got to step out of that and be a little less than amazing to actually be more amazing when you actually get that new shit down. But it is what it is. You know, I mean, like, I'm always going to be me, and I'm always going to know that I'm talented enough that I can burn all the bridges around me and still figure out another way. I burn all the bridges. Guess what? I become a stronger swimmer. So what? I'm going to complain because this person doesn't like me, or, you know, I'm not allowed in this place. I mean, like, I've been kicked out of more legendary places. And I've been kicked out of some real shitholes too. And even just on a regular level, like one day I'll tell you guys about when I went to Australia and got kicked out of this fucking bar that's known as one of the trashiest gay bars in Sydney. And I was fucking in the bathrooms, but that's not a story for this particular episode. It's almost time for me to wrap up. You know, like some people would say, like, you know, because of the things I said, that I'm maybe not the best friend in the world. And that's where I would stop you, because I would say that when it comes to these people, any of the people that I've mentioned, I am probably a better friend to them, even through this podcast and through the things I've said, than a lot of people that they have around them. Because I really do think that true friends tell you how to better yourself. And when it comes to everything I've said, I do think that there are constructive criticisms that I put in that other people would not tell them. Like, not to beat a dead horse, but when it comes to Kim, like, she can be the pretty girl that people give spots to because she's the pretty girl for as long as she's pretty. But if she really works on the stand-up part, like I know she's capable of, she can be the talented enough girl that once she's not as pretty anymore, because we all get older. I mean, not me, but we all get older. Then she'll be talented enough that nobody cares how she looks anymore. And she'll have already proven it in her pretty years. And they're just like, yeah, that bitch is just a fucking monster on stage. So of course we're going to continue to have her on everything. But otherwise you age out because you're only going to be pretty for so long. When it comes to Tony, he can keep running the way he's running, but eventually he's going to say the wrong thing about the wrong person, or he's going to mistreat the right person. And then it's going to end him either karmically or a more direct way. So Nobody else is going to tell him that because everybody around him is too busy riding the gravy train and just be like, give me whatever you're going to give me, or let's see what falls off, what I can, maybe the scraps that fall off the table, I can pick that up. And that's what they're paying attention to, is scraps that are falling off the table, rather than being an actual friend to Tony and saying, hey, sometimes you're not looking the best right now. And you are getting enough status now that is starting to matter, because that's the other thing that happens. Even I've had to deal with some of that, where like when I came to Austin, I did reach a different level of people actually paying attention to me. And it let me know, all right, you can't just turn into Karen at the HEB. People see you. If somebody takes out their camera, it's going to look real crazy. And everybody's going to be like, hey, this is Ty Rivera, comedian. I just saw him the other night at this particular club, and now here he is losing it on this 17-year-old girl that's trying to make some extra school money. He's yelling at her because there's no Think Thin bars, which she doesn't order for the store. But it's stuff you have to think about when you start to reach more status. So, Joe Rogan, if he were to give me a call, because I don't want to be on his podcast. I've never wanted to be on that podcast. If you know my personality, I can't sit anywhere for 4 hours. 3 hours, no. 2 hours, no. An hour max is what I can do on almost anything. And even that's asking a lot of me. But like with him, I just wanted to have a phone call at a particular point, because I really do feel like there are certain things that he can be doing, or that his people should be doing, if that club is going to be what he claims it is and what he wants it to be. And maybe on the podcast, your podcast, JRE, stop making it sound like it's a community center when really it's a country club. Because that's what it is. I mean, like, trust me, you guys, I was part of the country club. I wouldn't lie to you and be like, it's actually more of a community center than you'd understand. No. It's probably more of a country club than you'd understand. And there were benefits to it. Like, I did enjoy being there at times. I'm not saying that it was miserable, but just the thing is, I am more of a relaxed person than a stuffy person. So I didn't spend a lot of my extracurricular time there. I would do my sets and then get out of there and then come enjoy myself in a more relaxed atmosphere, which I know it's late in the episode for me to remind you guys. I'm pretty much done now. But the thoughts expressed on this podcast are not the thoughts of the Creek and the Cave or any of the staff here. Nobody here feels like I feel about any of this. That's the thing I'll tell you before I get out of here, is you guys have to understand, when I say this kind of stuff, I really do mean it. And that goes for my friends too, because it's happening less. That's why I didn't come on here and really start ripping more people, because if there were more names, I would give them up right now. Technically, there's one name that I haven't mentioned yet. I'll save it for if that person doesn't correct it, because I'm probably going to hit them up over message and just be like, hey, stop acting stupid, or I'm going to ruin your life personally, because this person is a small fry and I'll wreck them. They're not ready for the way that I'll wreck them if they really keep fucking with my friends, because, but they've been chill for the last week, but I just need to make sure that it stays that way. But I haven't called them out yet. Maybe they just saw things quaking around them a little bit and got like, I better get it together, or I'm going to get called out. If that's the case, I'll just send a quick message. They'll say, cool, we'll leave it at that. But for the most part, everybody's been leaving alone. But what you do have to understand is I'm not talking about this a lot outside of my podcast. I don't talk to my friends about this and have them thinking the same thing. If my friends say that they were on Kill Tony, I congratulate them. I don't editorialize how I feel about Tony or the things I talked about on the podcast when I'm dealing with them. Sometimes people in the comments get like, you can dish it, but you can't take it. And it's like, I'm only going to listen to you for so many comments anyway. And once I get tired of you, I just start deleting your comments, because the truth is, I don't have to listen to you continuously. I don't have to make it so my comments are an open forum like that. My comments are not a place for abuse. And you can't say I can dish it, but I can't take it, because if you ever go to Mothership's Instagram, which we both still follow each other, by the way, not for nothing, but just throwing it out there, I do not leave comments on there like, oh, this place is whatever. I don't. I'm not hitting Adam Eget up in his DMs. I'm not sending Tony Hinchcliffe text messages. I'm not DMing Kim Congdon. I'm not in any way abusing anybody. I talk on my podcast. I make content. But outside of that, it's not just like an open forum where I'm just constantly doing this stuff. So when people were going the route of trying to punish people that were friends of mine, they didn't realize that it wasn't like these people are co-signing. It's not like these people are like, I have your back and whatever we're doing together. It was like I kept that separate from them. When I recorded the podcast about burning bridges with Nick, the entire time, Nick nor producer Justin knew exactly what I was talking about. I hadn't told them yet. They just were having fun because I was being an asshole and saying I was quitting everything, and they didn't know why I was quitting anything or what I meant. And I gotta admit, I got them pretty good on that one. And then I chose to release it after I did the other. That was kind of dirty. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Slumber Party. We're done for today. Next week we'll be talking more shit about shit in general, but not this specifically. So I hope everybody enjoyed this episode. For those of you that this is your last episode watching, good riddance. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you.